All right, here we are discussing Mr. Gammell again. Um, and interesting, the question today is interesting in one sense, and that is that Gammell is a really short guy. And, and, and I remember he made a claim to be about my height. And I'm thinking he meant, he was well into his 80s, so I was thinking he must have meant when he was a young man and he'd sort of shrunk or something like that. But then he said, and the pictures bear this out. He's, in fact, he said to me once, he said, "I may be a dwarf, but you're a near dwarf." But it's crazy stuff. But in the meantime, he would say that he was a homunculus, and and he said, "Do you know what that is?" And he says that's a person who's really small, but their head is the right size in proportion to their bodies. And I never heard of such a thing as a homunculus. But anyway, I always thought it was funny that he would say that he was roughly within an inch of my height, but I had to build a 5-inch box for him to stand on to come and look at to get the right level to look at the work I was doing, the cast drawings, for example. So anyway, but the question here, and I will have to find the author. I can't say while I'm saying this now who this is, but someone asked, "Do you follow any particular rules when it comes to head size and painting portraits?" So I could argue I just suggest we painted the right size in relation to their bodies. I've heard that Mr. Gammell and Mr. Lack said that heads painted smaller than life size were monkey heads. It seems to me that heads depicted smaller than life size recede a bit better into the pictorial space as they sit within the picture frame. Do you feel that life-size heads or larger appear a bit too imposing and are unflattering, especially for a female portrait? So that's an interesting question, the question of head size. I remember at the Art Students League, we just painted the head whatever size we brought in a canvas. We painted the head the size we felt like painting it on the canvas. There was never a discussion like that. But I think probably the most astonishing moment for me in wondering about that question, and of course we were painting life-size heads with Gammell, was at one point we found that Gammell had a portrait or so at the I want to say it was a Harvard medical building over in on the other side of the Fens. I think it's now owned by Mass College of Art, actually. But within that building, there was a room full of portraits of doctors and things like that. And I really did see why you would paint a life-size head when I saw the walls covered with portraits by Draper and Cox. This is Gardner Cox. Certain George Augusta. Guys like that, and these were the contemporaries. These were more or less the contemporaries of Gammell's that had they were a little bit younger, but they had the market a little bit, portrait market. Gammell had done a portrait also, and one of his doctor was painted life size. All the other ones in the room were slightly under. And what happened was that all the slightly undered ones did recede into the wall. Gammell's sat forward and therefore actually had the advantage. It was the most astonishing thing. So my suggestion to you is if you want to paint them under life size, assume that anybody who paints them life size is the image is going to be more forward than yours. And I would suggest that possibly in that case will be more readily looked at or more quickly looked at. Much like the way if you were standing in a room, the nearest person to you would probably be the one you'd notice the most. De Gammell did call it monkey size, actually, though. His idea of monkey size was significantly under life size. On the other hand, when you get down to about 2/3 life size or so, you're just talking about an under life size portrait. And I do say that the effect of the other size. I mean, there is a size where you can't tell if the whole thing is actually under life size or not under life size. And that's just my general feeling about it. So Now, I can assure you that if you paint over life size, they really do look bizarre on the wall. I saw a Mason building full of portraits one day, and somebody had taken the trouble. I think this possibly was a building in Boston. Somebody had taken the trouble to paint a really significantly over life size portrait, and with the other portraits there, it looked goofball, and it was perfectly reasonably, I should say, for these days, well painted, but it was just way over life size, and it looked like a joke. I mean, it just simply did that. So those are kind of the two options to me. Obviously, if you're trying to make some sort of an art statement, but it's one thing. But when you're trying to do, be respected as a portraitist, that kind of stuff is really, really not sort of going to serve you very well. And if you want more jobs, I mean, are the other people going to want to be painted over life size? And those sorts of things. Let me talk about it in a slightly different way, and this is what I have sensed, or the reason I value life size. You already have a room. The picture is hanging as far away from possible, as far away as possible from anyone else standing in the room. If you're standing in the room, as close as you can get to that portrait is about, considering the size of your head, might be about 9 inches in front of the portrait, right? So the portrait already has a diminished effect because it's life size, but it's pushed all the way back to the wall. So it'd be as if you were standing right in the wall, like a ghost trying to get out in the Poltergeist or whatever those kinds of movies are. So you can see that you're already well situated in relation to the wall. You're also sort of rightly situated by size in relation to anything else that's sort of on the wall. And there's no reason to go any further into the wall. You see what I mean? So I wonder if those are the main thoughts. I'll just take one more look. It was Gammell's use of the term monkey size was, it was intended to sort of, make it look like an off-putting idea, just paint life size. But there is such a thing as a size that's below life size that's useful, and there are times when it's okay. I've never made a study of it, but I suspect that if you went through the museums, you would probably find a significant portion of the portraits in there life size. Sargent and many others. I wonder if you'll find anyone who paints much under life size. I should say not much under, but who, unless they're doing a life size portrait of a person standing. I'm almost remembering one. Oh, where is that? Oh, who is that guy? I won't be able to remember the portrait. Oh, it's right at the tip of my tongue. There's a beautiful portrait painted by a French painter. It's full-size portrait, meaning head to feet. But the picture is about that tall, and it's a really distinguished-looking portrait. But that's in a whole different class, and there's no reason you can't paint portraits that size or half size or all kinds of other sizes, and you shouldn't feel limited. I think that what we're talking about when we're talking about life-size portraits is just simply the marketplace and what people normally rather have gotten used to and want. Apart from that, there is a rather disturbing effect when it's just slightly under. When a person looks more like the size of a child and yet he's an adult, those kinds of things can be weird. So. I think that's pretty much it. Let's see. I don't think they feel a bit too imposing. I don't think they're unflattering for women to be life size. If you made all heads the same size, I mean, in my studies, with the figure and all, I've found that women's heads are slightly smaller than men's heads. So if you have a standard size and you make everybody's head 9+ inches, including women's head, then you hang two portraits side by side. That may look funny given how things are, every once in a while you find that a man and a wife have the same size heads and that sort of things, depending on their body sizes and things. But those are the kinds of things that might cause you to have pause. But I think I've said enough. You really wanted the Gammell background, and it is the same as what Lack would have said. That he referred to a monkey head. Gammell used the word monkey size around us, and. That's okay. That's enough for now. explore that, though. I mean, hang your pictures, do under life-size paintings, say for competitions, and put them up on walls and see if you can, how you do. See how you look. One of the things that's great about competitions, or even just being in any exhibition, one of the reasons to get up there is so you can see yourself more objectively. You can actually see your work more objectively. But that would be a very useful test. Do one under life size, do one right at life size, and get them up on the wall somewhere where the public can see it. And ask, see if you can get a sense of, you don't even have to ask other people, but see if you can get a sense of what you think. Okay, so not remembering who that is, I can't say your name this time. But all right, see you next time, and do please subscribe and all the rest, and thank you very much.